Look at the stats. 5 out of the top 6 televised rated games on the WNBA this year all involve Caitlin Clark. The only one that doesn't was a second half of a doubleheader in which Caitlin Clark played the first game.
Only on SportsGrid.
8 playoff games at home for Boston in Beantown. They are 6-2 straight up.
The wild card, I would say, in this game is not necessarily, well, what are we going to get out of Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, Brown, and certainly Tatum. It is Kristaps Porzingis to me, because we're not getting back a player that's like, hey, rotational guy. Like, remember when Derek Lively went down with the injury? He was playing well, but a young player, like a piece.
The early line. Only on SportsGrid.
Garrett Cole is getting ready to come back, too. I guess this... Look, they've played great without him, but you're not going to say to Garrett Cole, look, don't come back. I mean, it's a ridiculous conversation to have.
They're not going to take any unnecessary chances. And look, they're at the point where they have a lead. They certainly are going to make the playoffs, I would say, barring some sort of complete collapse. And that's all it takes.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
If you're in the room, what are you doing with the Judge MVP number? Books are now 2-1, standalone favorite. What are you doing with the Judge number?
What do I do with the MVP? I let them bet Judge at what? Even money? Come on in. I mean, you have to acknowledge now that he's the guy.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
Level 3, this is SportsRage. I am Morency, Sirius XM Channel 159 of the SportsGrid Radio and Television Networks. Mo Khan will step up and in Level 3. We'll get into some NBA. We haven't talked too much NBA tonight. We were on live during the Stanley Cup Finals. NBA is off until Wednesday. Stanley Cup is off until Thursday. We've got the U.S. Open this week. The Euro Cup starts later in the week on Friday. And we got the Copa around the corner as well. So there is actually quite a few events. It'll lead us right into the Olympic Games. That's right, the Olympics, which basketball will take center stage in North America. Caitlin Clark left off the U.S. women's team, which didn't fully shock me, really, right? She is a rookie, right? She hasn't played on the Team U.S. team. She hasn't played for any U.S. team since 2019. Which I don't know the backstory to that, why she hadn't or hasn't. I looked it up, and she has played for the U.S. before, like the under-19 team she won a gold medal with. She won a gold medal with the under-20 team. So she has played for Team USA before, but she hasn't played since 2019. So that's a little while. I don't know if she's, what the story behind the scenes is with that. And she is a rookie. I think a lot of it is we see the hatred's real. You saw again the other day, the girl on Connecticut was mocking her and stuff. It's real. And I think they were thinking probably, well, it's going to be a distraction. She's going to be on the next teams for years to come. And it's all going to be about her. I would imagine the players on the team, the girls on the team didn't want her. I don't know that per se. I understand, I guess she's been named the first alternate if somebody gets hurt or something happens. But at the same point in time, it's pretty crazy. Like the Team USA, the women's team, dominates this stuff, right? So it's not as if though, wow, we're going to be weaker if we take this rookie. Not to mention, she is scoring 17 points a game, and she is the future face of the WNBA and your basketball program, too. You would figure that you would want her on the team to get that Olympic experience moving forward. And the next Olympics, don't forget, are in Los Angeles. All right, so you want to talk about a big-time stage, and we all know she's going to be on the team in Los Angeles. So like I said, I think I bet you behind the scenes, their thinking is that, you know what, she's going to be taken over in the future. This will be our last shot, that it won't all be about Caitlin Clark, right? Because if she goes, and you see the numbers on our screen here about the massive increase in the television numbers and attendance for the WNBA, man, they're making so much money in the WNBA this year, the players are going to start to ask for more money. That's why they shouldn't be upset with Caitlin Clark, because Caitlin Clark's going to make you more money, right? That's the way it works. I mean, you know, before it was like, yeah, listen, we can only afford to pay you $85,000 or whatever it was. Now, you know, it's like, look, we're getting 17,000 people a game. Now, it's not every night and every arena or anything like that, but attendance is pretty good in the WNBA. Like, even like in non-Caitlin Clark games, because I saw like people were, when they were making a point of like, Caitlin Clark sells out everywhere she goes, but other teams, you know, Vegas sell out every game with or without Caitlin Clark. They sold out all their season tickets. Like they have like a 12, 13,000 seat arena. The Sparks are doing pretty well. The Sky are doing well. Let's roll. Level 3 has begun. This is Sports Rage. I am Gabriel Morency, the pimps, the players, the hustlers, the people that bust them, and everybody else in between, including the Florida Panthers, who have a 2-0 series lead over the Edmonton Oilers. 4-1 final score. Game does stay under the number. And the final score was 4-1, but the Edmonton Oilers were leading 1-0, but the Florida Panthers were the better team. And hockey could be strange like that. The Florida Panthers were dominating the game, but they couldn't score. But you just got the feeling that it was going to happen. So the Panthers, of course, lost in the Stanley Cup Finals last year. Incredibly difficult to get back to the Stanley Cup Finals. It's super hard in any league to get to the finals. You need luck. You need to be good. Like, you need to be lucky to be good and good to be lucky and all that. But hockey is even tougher. Like, you know, they don't call the Stanley Cup the toughest trophy in sports to win for nothing. Anyone that's watching the Stanley Cup playoffs knows how physical it is. And you've got to win 16 games, man, right? You got to play 4 7-game series to get there after an 82-game season. And they don't do load management in the NHL. So for the Florida Panthers to be playing with the energy and the ferociousness that they're playing with after like going to a Stanley Cup last year and now doing it again, absolutely super impressive stuff so far. And it's rare to say that a game 3 of a series is a must win, but very similar to the Dallas Mavericks. You need to win the next game. Otherwise, it's all but over, right? We all know nobody comes back in the NBA when you're down 3-0. The NHL, a couple of teams have, but it's few and far between, all right? So it's not as if, though, oh, yeah, you can come back in hockey any easier than you can in the NBA. So, you know, we got a couple of pivotal game 3 must-win game 3 situations coming up, and I think actually both home teams can get it done. The Los Angeles Lakers couldn't get it done with Danny Hurley. Last week, I was one of the few people who said out loud, I don't think he's going to take the job. And people said, well, it's LA, it's the Lakers, he's going to be a perfect fit. What's he going to do? People were convinced he was going to take the job. If you notice, we didn't put a ton of stock into talking about like what he was going to do as a coach there, because I didn't think he was going to take it. But what does surprise me was how low the offer actually is. Like, you know, it's hard to say that $70 million isn't a lot of money, but it really isn't when you consider he's already making, you know, he's going to make money at UConn as it is already. And wouldn't you want to make him like the highest paid coach in the league? Like, I actually thought, like, okay, the only way he does take this job is if they put like, you know, $20 million a year on the table. Put it like a ridiculous like contract up. You know, like 5 years, $100 million, you're the new head coach. It's hard to turn down $100 million. It's not super hard to turn down $11 million a year. All right. And I know, you know, reports are that, he's getting 50 from UConn. UConn will adjust this because they don't want to fall into the Harbaugh situation, but it's sort of begun, hasn't it? If you're UConn. And I tweeted out tonight, I don't think it's out of the question that Danny Hurley's a coach in the NBA. But I think the East Coast is where he belongs. And I think, that's who he is. Tom Thibodeau's not going to be the coach of the New York Knicks forever. Wouldn't Hurley be a perfect coach for the New York Knicks? The owner of the Brooklyn Nets has a ton of money, right? The Nets could be a young team with a bunch of stars in the future, a couple of years down the road. And I do think Hurley wants to join the legends and win 3 in a row. And I think he can. If you look at the team that he has, there's no reason that he can't. So Harbaugh is a little bit different, but anytime that a college coach starts to meet with pro teams, then it's just sort of begun, right? And we can talk about, Harbaugh was uncomfortable with the athletic director and the NCAA investigation. And no, Harbaugh was just looking for a way out, and we all knew he wanted to get to the NFL, and Harbaugh was meeting with teams over the past couple of years. He finally ended up taking the job this time. So I think Hurley probably does end up in the NBA in a couple of years. I think eventually the NIL stuff will get to him like it gets to a lot of the coaches that have been there a while that aren't used to dealing with that world. But it just didn't seem like the right fit. Hurley and the Lakers. And let's be real, man. LeBron James is the coach of the Lakers. All right? Like, they don't want a coach. They have a coach. It's LeBron James, point blank. Right? I mean, it doesn't matter who the coach is. The roster is the roster, and the roster has flaws. It's a good basketball team, but it's not a great basketball team. And I didn't think just because Hurley became the coach that they were suddenly going to win the championship anyways. JJ Redick on line 2. This is SportsRage.
Look at the stats. 5 out of the top 6 televised rated games on the WNBA this year all involve Caitlin Clark. The only one that doesn't was a second half of a doubleheader in which Caitlin Clark played the first game.
Only on SportsGrid.
8 playoff games at home for Boston in being down. They are 6-2 straight up.
The wild card, I would say, in this game is not necessarily, what are we going to get out of Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, Brown, and certainly Tatum. It is Kristaps Porzingis to me, because we're not getting back a player that's like, hey, rotational guy. Like, remember when Derek Lively went down with an injury? He was playing well, but a young player, like a piece.
The early line. Only on SportsGrid.
Garrett Cole is getting ready to come back too. I guess this. Look, they've played great without him, but you're not going to say to Garrett Cole, "Look, don't come back." I mean, it's a ridiculous conversation to have.
They're not going to take any unnecessary chances. And look, they're at the point where they have a lead. They certainly are going to make the playoffs, I would say, barring some sort of complete collapse. And that's all it takes.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
If you're in the room, what are you doing with the Judge MVP number? Books are now 2-1, standalone favorite. What are you doing with the Judge number?
What do I do with the MVP? I let them bet Judge at what? Even money? Come on in. I mean, you have to acknowledge now that he's the guy.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
This is SportsRage. I am Gabriel Morency. Shout out to all of our AM radio affiliates joining us this evening. The mightier 1090 to 50,000 watt juggernaut in the house. San Diego have broken the game open. It's 6-1 right now over the Athletics. Cronenworth's got a home run, a double. Big night tonight. Tatis 1 for 4 so far. 6-1 for the Friars. 4-4 in the Pacific Northwest with Seattle and Chicago. And the Mariners were down. We jumped in on the Mariners at plus 150 in game. They're now minus 200. 4-4 going to the bottom of the we're in the bottom of the ninth inning, 1 out right now. And H-Town is up on San Francisco. In San Francisco, we're in extra innings. These Ghost Runners always break the game open. It's 3-1 right now for the Houston Astros. A lot of stuff to break down. Let's bring in our boy Mo Khan, basketball play-by-play man, TSN statistician, former college football player, meteorologist, and more. Mo Khan. Mo, always a pleasure. How you doing tonight, Mo?
I'm well, Gabe. Look, I've been immersed in the T20 World Cup of Cricket with the NBA Finals and the European Cup about to begin this week and the Copa America as well. So I'm really have gone international with my sports viewing the last few weeks here.
One of the biggest upsets. It wasn't one of the biggest upsets in sports history. It was a big upset with USA obviously beating Pakistan. No one can dispute that, Mo. But, you know, from a betting perspective, they were like plus 800 or something like that. But in the cricket world, wow. No, you know what I mean? They're talking about guys that work for Oracle and computer programmers and part-time cricket players winning. Unbelievable. How surprised were you as someone that follows cricket? And was there a buzz about the U.S. team coming into the tournament?
No, the equivalent of Pakistan losing to the United States in cricket is equivalent to the Boston Celtics losing to CEBL.
Well, let's say like USA losing in baseball to Pakistan.
Yeah, it's the reverse, right? But the thing was, like history, like I won't get into the semantics here, but Pakistan's had a real like political issue within their cricket board for the last like 10, 20 years, whatever it is. And it showed at this game against USA. It showed against India on Sunday in New York City and Long Island, right? When they should have had India dead to rights and they blew that game away with their terrible hitting that they had against the Indian pitching that they had. So I just think for Pakistan, I mean, they're in a tight situation. They have to beat Canada. They have to beat Ireland and hope the USA loses the rest of the games to qualify as a top 2 team from the group for the next round for the Super 8. So I think for the Americans, one more win, and they are going to advance through, Gabe, to the Final 8 of the T20 World Cup.
Yeah, I tell you, it's not easy, though. They're plus 700 underdogs against India. India, 12-1, Mo. What do you think about this game? And now India is going to be on alert, knowing that the USA is capable of winning games, right? They beat Canada already. Yeah. Then they beat Pakistan. So India is not going to get caught sleeping here.
No, to give to your American viewers and Canadian viewers who are watching this or listening right now, the equivalent of India playing USA is like Georgia football taking on like Valdosta State. That's what the comparison will be, right? India got its wake-up call against Pakistan. And I think they're going to smash them and crush them because, again, the biggest tiebreaker in this format is your run rate. So the higher your run rate is, the better your strength of schedule is, more or less, to qualify if you're in a tiebreaker situation with a team or two along the way. But I think the Indians will beat the Americans. But, again, all USA need is one more win, probably against Ireland if they do so, and they will advance to the next round.
What do you think tomorrow? We've got 3 matches tomorrow. Any upsets in the making? Pakistan is minus 900 favorites against Canada. Canada is plus 550. Sri Lanka are 10-1 favorites against Nepal. And Australia are 40-1 favorites, Mo, against Namibia. It feels like all 3 of the favorites are going to roll tomorrow.
Yeah, I would kind of caution on Sri Lanka. They've not played well in this tournament, but they could break it open, right? And for Pakistan, again, this could be a trap game. Canada's played well, but I just think for Pakistan, they'll rebound back. I think the big hitters in Australia will be excellent. If you saw the game against England on the weekend, Gabe, they literally smashed England out of the park with their batting and stuff. So I think for the Australians right now, they might be the best play going towards the next couple of weeks of this World Cup in the West Indies as well.
Well, I wasn't planning on opening up with some cricket talk tonight, but there we go. Broken down by Mo Khan. Great stuff. Yeah, just an incredible stuff. Listen, man, we talked about the globalization of sports and cricket's popularity in North America. Look, man, think about it, Mo. They've been trying to build a NASCAR track for years in New York. Like, it's been going on forever, right? We've got to build a NASCAR track in the New York City area. They never were able to pull it off, yet they pulled off a 30,000 seat beautiful cricket stadium, right? I mean, there's talk about a pro league in America coming as well. I know there was one of the Microsoft guys and some big time money dudes that wanted to get a league going. So the popularity continues to grow in North America, and this tournament goes on. Just a quick check of the futures here, as long as we got Mo Khan with us, and we do have a bunch of degenerate gamblers. India are the favorites to win at plus 190. Australia are plus 275. West Indies are 6-1. South Africa 6-1. England 9-1. Afghanistan 16-1. New Zealand 20-1. Pakistan 33-1. Bangladesh, then there's a bunch of long shots. USA are 100-1 to win the championship. You said Australia could be the team to keep your eye on. Is Australia the team?
They've been impressive so far in the first couple of games of their campaign, Gabe. They've played really well. And, the statement win over England, the defending T20 champions, was quite remarkable for how well they are. And England right now is on the ropes. They have to win out. They have very little room for error moving forward here, given that their first game against Scotland was a washout, so it goes off a run rate. And I think for the English, they have to come up with some emphatic wins for the remainder of their campaign in the opening round. But the team to watch out for, Gabe, and they might be a dark horse to qualify into the Super 8, Afghanistan. They've been playing well, Gabe, and they've come up with some big moments here. And if they do sneak into the next 8, I mean, it's unpredictable because the cricket sport, you think you can be the favorites one day, but all it takes is one bad bowling or hitting from a team perspective. And
you're saying upsets are possible in cricket.
It is possible, right? And this event has had some upsets. We talked about it before. U.S. and Pakistan. Canada almost beat the Americans. They just need a couple more runs to win, and they couldn't do so. But I think there will be an upset or two in the Super 8, and it might be Afghanistan that might pull it off at some point.
All right, so Mo says he does think the U.S. Have a chance of moving on, which would be super cool for the popularity of cricket in America. And keep your eye on Australia, plus 275 to win it all. More with Mo Khan on the other side. We'll get to the Lakers situation in the finals.
Look at the stats. 5 out of the top 6 televised rated games on the WNBA this year all involve Caitlin Clark. The only one that doesn't was a second half of a doubleheader in which Caitlin Clark played the first game.
Only on SportsGrid.
8 playoff games at home for Boston in Beantown. They are 6-2 straight up.
The wild card, I would say, in this game is not necessarily, well, what are we going to get out of Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, Brown, and certainly Tatum. It is Kristaps Porzingis to me, because we're not getting back a player that's like, hey, rotational guy. Like, remember when Derek Lively went down with the injury? He was playing well, but a young player, like a piece.
The early line. Only on SportsGrid.
Garrett Cole's getting ready to come back too. I guess this. Look, they've played great without him, but you're not going to say to Garrett Cole, "Look, don't come back." I mean, it's a ridiculous conversation to have.
They're not going to take any unnecessary chances. And look, they're at the point where they have a lead. They certainly are going to make the playoffs, I would say, barring some sort of complete collapse. And that's all it takes.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
If you're in the room, what are you doing with the Judge MVP number? Books are now 2-1, standalone favorite. What are you doing with the Judge number?
What do I do with the MVP? I let them bet Judge at what? Even money? Come on in. I mean, you have to acknowledge now that he's the guy.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
Well, Seattle comes back on the Chicago White Sox in dramatic fashion, a grand slam. You want to end in a dramatic fashion? Unbelievable. We were talking about this game. It was scoreless. It was all over them. You know what I mean? It was scoreless, and the White Sox were like plus 200. Then they took a 2-0 lead. Then they were up 4-0 in the eighth inning. And the Mariners put up 4 runs in the 8th and 4 in the 9th. They didn't even go to extra innings. They won 8-4. And this is the third time in remember twice last week, I think it was last week, the Cubs were down against the White Sox. We were live on the air, and we said, man, the White Sox bullpen is terrible. They're going to blow this. And they did 2 nights in a row. We said the same thing again tonight. Boom, we cashed the plus 150, but I did have the under in the baseball game. But I lose the under, but I did hit the plus 150 after. Mo Khan with us. I am Gabriel Morency. So, Mo, we'll get into the NBA Finals, Stanley Cup Finals, but the Los Angeles Lakers, going into the weekend, a lot of people sort of thought it was going to be a done deal, that Hurley would never leave the offices of the Lakers, that it would be announced. And even Woj said, whatever happens is going to be done. And he was right. He said, one way or the other, this will be decided by the end of the weekend type of deal. I never thought it was as close as a lot of people thought. He had never even met them before. So he's going to just uproot his life and change everything just because you guys want him, right? And then, so he shows up, and then they offer him a 6-year, $70 million contract that not exactly needle moving, Mo. You know what I'm saying? For the hottest coaching property in basketball, you offer what it would have been the 5th or 6th highest paid coach in the league only. And you want him to take over the Lakers and leave a 2-time defending champion? And not to mention, UConn's going to come up with more money for him now. So that's the one thing that surprised me the most, Mo. Were you surprised about the lowball offer that they offered him?
No, I think for Hurley, Gabe, it was a matter of leverage, right? To kind of get more out of UConn, which he will and has, right? The last 2 months of what he's done so far for them after the back-to-back championship that they had. But the thing was, Gabe, right? The moment he left LA with no signed contract, I felt like he was going to stay UConn, right? Because, again, LA, if they wanted him that badly, had to keep him in the office and make him sign that deal and say, you're going to be the Laker coach on Monday morning when we introduce you to the LA world. And that's not the case. And I think for Hurley, he realized that as much as there's the LeBron factor and Anthony Davis factor, LeBron will be done in 2 years, and AD might be done in 3 years. And what's next for him? And you look at the history of Laker coaches, Gabe, right? Darvin Ham lasted 2 years. Vogel, I think, was 2.5, 3 years. Luke Walton was, I think, a year and a half, 2 years under Pelinka. So the expiry date on Laker coaches, especially in the last 14, 15 years post Phil Jackson, has been an average 2.8 per year or per campaign for D'Antoni and all these other guys that came through before him. See, for Hurley,
this will be their 8th coach.
Right, and Hurley right now realized, look, I don't have to go to the NBA now. I'll find the right spot that fits my profile. And he even said, Gabe, he's not mature enough yet to be an NBA coach because of his outbursts that he has that can work on college kids, but not pro players. And that's where he has to work on himself to become a better basketball coach. And when it's time to move up in the order, and like Jim Harbaugh did with Michigan, he'll find the right spot and land in the right situation. That'll give him the flexibility to run what he wants to run as an NBA head coach.
And that's the thing. If someone like Hurley, he's a control freak, he's a college guy, and the Lakers are not an organization that you're going to run. It's just, you know what I mean? And there's so many different voices with the Lakers. So you've got Jeannie Buss, who has the final word, obviously. But, Rob Pelinka. Kurt Rambis is the advisor and exactly to her. And so she feeds stuff to him and others. You got Rob Pelinka, who gets blamed for everything, but I don't think he has any real power. You got LeBron James, who pretends that I don't know anything. Yeah, okay, as if. And you got Rich Paul, bro, who, has a lot of power. Hurley's not dumb. He sees this. And as you talked about, it's like, what? Like, are you guys going to force me to draft Bronny James too? You know what I mean? Like, there's a sort of like this, like, you're not in control. The LeBron's in control. Let's just be honest. And, and like you said, too, it's not like LeBron's in his prime. And, it's not an insult against the Lakers, but if you're Hurley, you got a good thing going. And I agree. And I tweeted out earlier in the day, Mo, and it's sort of like Harbaugh. Harbaugh met with NFL teams, always got more money from Michigan. And it doesn't matter who you are if you're a coach. If every time you win, you want more money, it's going to start to upset people eventually. Because that's why we pay you in the first place, is to win. And that was Harbaugh's deal, bro. And I love Harbaugh to death. But, dude, he beat Ohio State, the first time in forever, and he wanted a raise. Like, you know what I'm saying? And then he made it to the playoffs. He wanted a raise. Then when they won, you know what I mean? It was like, wow, they're not really treating me well.
Look at the stats. 5 out of the top 6 televised rated games on the WNBA this year all involve Caitlin Clark. The only one that doesn't was a second half of a doubleheader in which Caitlin Clark played the first game.
Only on SportsGrid.
8 playoff games at home for Boston in Beantown. They are 6-2 straight up.
The wild card, I would say, in this game is not necessarily, well, what are we going to get out of Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, Brown, and certainly Tatum. It is Kristaps Porzingis to me, because we're not getting back a player that's like, hey, rotational guy. Like, remember when Derek Lively went down with an injury? He was playing well, but a young player, like a piece.
The early line. Only on SportsGrid.
Garrett Cole is getting ready to come back too. I guess this. Look, they've played great without him, but you're not going to say to Garrett Cole, "Look, don't come back." I mean, it's a ridiculous conversation to have.
They're not going to take any unnecessary chances. And look, they're at the point where they have a lead. They certainly are going to make the playoffs, I would say, barring some sort of complete collapse. And that's all it takes.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
If you're in the room, what are you doing with the Judge MVP number? Books are now 2-1, standalone favorite. What are you doing with the Judge number?
What do I do with the MVP? I let them bet Judge at what? Even money? Come on in. I mean, you have to acknowledge now that he's the guy.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
I am Gabriel Morency. This is SportsRage. We're talking basketball right now with Mo Khan. And Mo, the Lakers are a glamour organization, and I get it. But at the same point in time, if you're a big-time coach and you're you're a basketball guy and stuff like that, you will. Like, it's going to catch up eventually. And I think it kind of is, isn't it? It's not like there's a ton of people. There's not a ton of, like, legendary coaches or big-name coaches or hot coaches that are saying, listen, forget about JJ Redick, forget about that. I'm your guy. And you know what I mean? I want this job. And you talked about it, LeBron's age, the roster, the situation, the organization structure, but you got to believe as well, right? If you treat coaches as poorly as they've treated them and you're always the scapegoat, eventually it's going to turn off coaches. I don't think that's why Hurley didn't take the job. I don't think Hurley wanted the job. But I think there's some other basketball people, right? Like even assistant coaches. Let's say you're an assistant coach, Mo, in the NBA.
Yeah.
It's not a great job. Like if you're close to, you're one of these guys, you're close to getting a head coaching job. Why? So you can get fired in 2 years? You go in there and you're going to get fired once LeBron's gone, or if LeBron doesn't like you and they change their mind. Look at what happened in Milwaukee this year, bro, right? They're 31-13, but they didn't like him because he was too aggressive with them. So they didn't like him. They got him fired, and it got worse after with Doc. The NBA is a strange league to be a coach in. I don't think Hurley, I think he really understood that. But what do the Lakers do now? Is it going to be one of these NBA assistant guys, or is it going to be JJ Redick, who's never been a coach before?
No, it's a bleep show right now in LA. I mean, we were talking off air, like, Gabe, it's now June 11th or June 12th, whatever day we are, on Tuesday morning.
We got a draft is like next week, in 2 weeks or whatever. It's coming up.
Right?
Like,
and apparently they're aiming to have the coach in place by the draft. Like, Gabe, you think about it, though, they've had pretty much 6 weeks since Darvin Ham's been axed by the Lakers to find their head coach. And now they're on to what? Plan G, H, whatever, LMP, whatever it is on their alphabet list over here. And for LeBron saying, I don't know if I have an influence, whatever it is, the reality is you're trying to win now and build for the future. And the Lakers' vision right now is similar to like Manchester United in European soccer, right? The legacy of that franchise, that club, has been on hard times for the last 12, 15 years past after Sir Alex Ferguson. same thing. Since Phil Jackson left this organization, they've been a directionless ship so far in the seas. And how do you kind of get things back in the right direction here? And I don't know which coach would want this job here.
But let me ask you something, Mo, and this is the elephant in the room. It's LeBron James. He's a big part of it as to why coaches don't want to coach, because you're not coaching. LeBron is coaching, right? Let's be real. You're not.
God rest his Kobe Bryant, right? Even towards the end of his time, with his cap hit that he had, it was tough to kind of build around Kobe because, he was broken down, unfortunately, towards the end of his career. And the Lakers were in the tailspin for about 4 or 5 years post Kobe Bryant.
But also, Mo, we could talk about coaches, but look, star players haven't been lining up to play with LeBron James for past years now. And why is that? Because they know he's the stat guy. He wants to break all the records, right? You play with LeBron, you get the blame if you lose, and he gets the credit if they win. That's the way that it goes. And if you're the coach, you survive if you win, and you lose, and it's your fault. Right, and it's rinse and repeat. How many coaches LeBron had in his career? A lot.
He's had a lot. Like
even going back to Cleveland when he pretended, I didn't even know that Dave Blatt was going to get fired. I had no idea. Like, okay, you know what I mean? Like, let's be real. Like even back in the Cleveland days, bro, it was like rinse and repeat all the time with this. But I'm just saying, LeBron is a guy. You'll notice, like players want to play with Wembanyama now. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of guys in the NBA that are like, man, I'd play. I want to go into the Spurs. I want to play with that dude, right? LeBron is not the same. He has the ball in his hand all the time. It's very political, as we all know, with whatever team he's on. They load the team with his agents, players as well. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's a lot of elephants in this room, bro.
There is, but the thing is now, Gabe, is that this is no longer LeBron's team. In theory, it is by face, but it should be AD's team. AD's now in his prime of his career.
It wouldn't shock you if AD left. It wouldn't shock me.
No, but not right now because he's still got LeBron, right? LeBron brought him to LA. He's not going to leave LeBron because, you know what, things are going to go off the rails over here. He's going to stick around for another year or two, and if it goes off the rails after 2 years where they don't win anything or qualify for the playoffs, who knows, then, he'll leave. But again, Dan Hurley saw it. Like, he will not have control of his roster. He will not have control of what he wants to kind of build upon here, even though LeBron threw rose petals at him for how he ran his office at UConn during the tournament a few months ago. But now,
well, too.
Yeah.
And it's not even so, I was just going to say, too, it's not just like LeBron to control. The problem is they don't have, they're in the middle. They don't have, any top picks coming up. They don't, you know what I mean? They're draft pick depleted. They're an older team. They keep on trading to get these guys and give up everything all the time. So it's not like it's LeBron's fault. I'm not blaming him for that, where, if you're Hurley, you can't rebuild this, like you said. Right? That's why there's certain jobs that are better where you can come in and say, all right, it's a good draft coming up. I can get a couple of good players here. Or sort of like Harbaugh, right? Harbaugh, he could hang his hat on. Listen, I got Justin Herbert here. I got Justin Herbert in his prime. Mahomes and the Chiefs are winning, but they can't win forever. I got a 5-year plan here. And they did give him complete control, pretty much. Right? Harbaugh could draft whoever the hell he wanted. He could, start. His name is the brand of this team now. It wasn't the same for Hurley, but do you think it's going to be J.J. Redick now?
I have to believe it's going to be JJ. I just think that all signs point to him, and people were trying to figure out on Friday, will he talk about it? And he hasn't really spoken about it, right? About where he stands in the Laker pantheon of the search right now. And I think Gabe, and probably in respect to JJ, they probably told him, hypothetically, that, look, we got to do our due diligence right now with Dan Hurley and others that might come up here on our radar before we could hire you. And now it's down to him and the assistant coach that had AD back in New Orleans. I mean, this is
Borrego. That's what I'm saying. So we're right back to so you got some assistant coming in now that is just another guy.
Excitement though. Doesn't exude oh my God, we're about to win 5.
The only reason this guy Borrego will get the job because AD likes him. He'd be like, yeah, okay, you know what I mean. That's all it comes down to there. Does LeBron and AD like you?
Yeah, but the thing is now, if you're a Laker fan, I'm not saying it's hopeless, but man, it's a bad migraine you have. You're not going to shake this migraine with 2 Tylenols. It's going to take time for them to get back to where they want to be. And we spoke about this game. Look at the West right now. T-Wolves are up and rising. The Nuggets will be back bigger and better, right? Phoenix could be a wild card. Look at Sacktown. You look at Golden State. They're going to rebound, hopefully, with some moves that they're going to do with their roster. Utah is on the rise. I mean, the West right now is loaded, and it's going to be fun to watch this conference next season. And look at what's going on with the NBA playoffs right now with the Dallas Mavericks too. So if you're the Lakers, you might be the 8th, maybe 9th best team right now, currently going towards the offseason. That's not good enough to win any NBA title or make inroads in the playoffs next season.
No, and as crazy as it is, the Lakers are kind of in this spot as long as LeBron is there. You know what I mean? Like, they need a turnover type of thing. They're stuck in the middle, and he's too good to run out, but they're not going to win with him. They're in a weird spot right now. And on conversely, I don't know how many other teams would really even are lining up to say, you know what, if LeBron does want to go somewhere, which I don't think he does. I personally think he's going to ride it out in L.A. He's won enough. He doesn't really have anything to prove, but maybe Golden State, you know what I mean? Maybe the Sixers. I'm not saying there'd be a few teams that would be into it, but I don't know if he would be into it. I think maybe he would be into the Golden State thing for a run or something. But, you know, like you said, they're in a weird spot. Like they're in a rock between a hard place right now, the Lakers. Because as you stated, they're no matter who their coach is, they're not better than a 6 seed, a 5 seed, or whatever. Like they just are who they are, right? The roster is, but maybe they get Spider Mitchell, but so in other words, they'll replace D'Angelo Russell with Donovan Mitchell. Exactly.
What's that going to do, Gabe? What's that going to do?
No, hit the finals on the other side.
Look at the stats. 5 out of the top 6 televised rated games on the WNBA this year all involve Caitlin Clark. The only one that doesn't was a second half of a doubleheader in which Caitlin Clark played the first game.
Only on SportsGrid.
8 playoff games at home for Boston in being down. They are 6-2 straight up.
The wild card, I would say, in this game is not necessarily, well, what are we going to get out of Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, Brown, and certainly Tatum. It is Kristaps Porzingis to me, because we're not getting back a player that's like, hey, rotational guy. Like, remember when Derek Lively went down with the injury? He was playing well, but a young player, like a piece.
The early line. Only on SportsGrid.
Garrett Cole's getting ready to come back too. I guess look, they've played great without him, but you're not going to say to Garrett Cole, look, don't come back. I mean, it's a ridiculous conversation to have.
They're not going to take any unnecessary chances. And look, they're at the point where they have a lead. They certainly are going to make the playoffs, I would say, barring some sort of complete collapse. And that's all it takes.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
If you're in the room, what are you doing with the Judge MVP number? Books are now 2-1, standalone favorite. What are you doing with the Judge number?
What do I do with the MVP? I let them bet Judge at what? Even money? Come on in. I mean, you have to acknowledge now that he's the guy.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
All right, we're going to move on from the Los Angeles Lakers. People get mad all the time. But those are like national shows 10 minutes before the NBA Finals start, and the Lakers were in the news today. But there are the NBA Finals going on. We're off for a couple of days. We're off until Wednesday. The Celtics, of course, are up 2-0 in the series, but the Mavericks are home favorites in Game 3. They're 1.5 point home favorites, so small home favorites, minus 125 on the money line. The total in the basketball game is 212.5. You got to believe the Dallas Mavericks will be better now they're back home, but Boston are a pretty good road team. And Boston are showing, similar to the Florida Panthers, and we'll get to the Cup, but Boston looked like a team that had been there before, and they have the experience, and they're not wasting, they don't turn the ball over as much. They're not as sloppy. Drew Holiday is a big difference. Everyone's just doing their job on Boston, like a team that they don't care about stats. They just want to win the damn basketball game. They're doing a great job with it. Dallas have been sort of overwhelmed. The role players haven't been good enough, and Kyrie Irving hasn't been good enough. 0 for 12 now, and great games going back to Boston, Mo. But shocking to me that through 2 games, Kyrie Irving hasn't hit a three-point shot. He's 0 for 8 from 3. He scored 28 points in 2 games combined. He normally scores 28 points in a game in the playoffs. I do expect them to be better, but this is a must-win situation for the Mavericks. But I do think the Mavericks are going to win on Wednesday, Mo. Who do you think wins on Wednesday?
I agree. I think it goes back to Boston 3-1 for the Celtics. I think this series right now, I think the stat number gave teams that have a 2-0 lead in the NBA Finals are 31-5 to go on to win the NBA title, right? So if you're a Boss fan, that's a pretty strong number to have in your back pocket if you're up 2-0 as they are. But, you're right about Kyrie. He has to play better than what he did not do in the first 2 games of Boston. Secondly, I think the Mavericks have to do a better job at the free throw line. They're 2 of 7 the first quarter game. They missed 8 overall. And how much did they lose by, right? They lost by 7 or 8, whatever it was.
7, yep.
7, right? Third, the guy hit the three-point ball. Think about it, Gabe. Boston was 0-7 out of the gate from the three-point line in the first quarter in game number 2. You had them on the ropes, and you could hit your own three-point shots. You cannot miss your chances against this Boston team if they're slow out of the blocks. And if that's the case on Wednesday for game number 3, then Boston might end up being a 3-0 lead, and we'll talk about them being the NBA champions by next Monday. So I think those 3 factors have to be prevalent for this Maverick team to come with victory. I think they will do so on Wednesday night in Dallas. But again, that game 2, it felt like as close as it was at times here, Boston was still in control of the narrative, and you saw what happened at the end. They pulled away and did not have any angst whatsoever in their play in the fourth quarter.
You're right. And even in game 1 ended up getting away from them. But early in the game, there was a couple of sequences that sort of have been a sign of things to come in the series. And it was just effort, bro, right? Just sort of the extra effort. And there was a sequence when Boston were taking threes in game 1. They missed like 4 3-point shots in a row, and they kept getting the rebound all the time. And they were getting beat to it. Luka once got a rebound and casually just sort of one-handed it and knocked it out of bounds. Right. A couple other just sort of casual passes. Kyrie Irving throwing the ball away. You can't waste possessions, Mo. Like you just said, you're losing finals games by 7 points. You're leaving free throws. You're wasting possessions along the way. Things that Boston used to do. Remember, oftentimes Boston, Jaylen Brown would randomly just throw the ball out of bounds. Jason Tatum would pass it to nobody, right? And they still do it every now and then. But they don't do it like they used to. Now Dallas are doing that. Like Kyrie Irving passed the ball to nobody the other night. It's like, really, bro? You just literally threw it into the stands. In an NBA final game, these possessions matter. They were definitely rattled. I think they'll calm down at home. But, even if Dallas are calmer and play better, they still have to hope that Boston's 3-point shots aren't falling, Mo. I tell you that.
Yeah, and the irony is that game 1, Luke had 1 assist, right? And game 2, he had 11. So he had a plus 10, if not, you convert to points plus 20, whatever it was, and they still could have won. And I just think in this situation now for Jason Kidd, what's his ace up his sleeve? What's he going to do for a joker card to come up in the deck of cards against the Celtic team? And again, Boston looks more composed. They look more relaxed, Gabe. And you look at Al Horford, you look at Tatum, you look at Jaylen Brown, look at the supporting cast. You mentioned Drew Holiday. I think he's been the X factor in why Boston is so much better now compared to where they were, say, 12 months ago, or even 24 months ago when they lost to the Warriors 2 years ago. So there's no question right now the momentum's in favor of Boston. But again, if Dallas is going to pull off game 3 here, those 3 factors, 3-point shooting, free throw shooting, and this being much more efficient in their possessions. Gabe, I got a great line for you. A university coach in Canada, Dave DeVero, told me this once. He said, Mo, in a basketball game, there's going to be 120 possessions, okay, or 140 possessions. Can you get 10 more possessions that can convert for points? 70-60 here. Can the Mavericks get 10 more possessions that can go for points? If they do that, they should take away game 3 and make it a 2-1 series for Friday night.
That's a great point, but you know what? Boston get a lot of shots off. And that's another thing, too, with Dallas. Luka's a little quicker, but it used to be a problem for them. Luka walks the ball up the court, and as good as he is, they weren't getting as many possessions as their opponents. And it's hard in today's day and age when teams and players can drill threes the way they can. So Kyrie Irving's player prop number is the same as it's been. They haven't moved it. It's 23.5 again. And you got to believe he's going to play better at home. Let's switch to the Stanley Cup Finals. Most similar situation. The Edmonton Oilers are just getting overwhelmed. Both these series are very similar in that Florida were in the finals last year, and it shows. They look like a team that is like, no, we're not losing again. We know what it takes this time. And they're sacrificing their bodies. Pucks aren't getting through. They're blocking passes. They're winning every one-on-one battle. You know, the Panthers are playing great hockey, and the Oilers are in the same spot as the Mavericks are. They're not done yet, but they're in a lot of trouble right now.
They're in trouble, Gabe. You look at the Oilers, right, and their run to the Stanley Cup playoffs right now, right? They kind of got by the Kings without any real competitive angst from the LA Kings. Round number 2, Brock Besser, you wonder if he was healthy enough, would they have lost that series? But I think right
Game
now
7
for Edmonton, Game 7. If Edmonton's going to win Game 3 in Edmonton, they got to be much more aggressive physically in the right way. But more importantly, though, get more from their power play. Where was the power play the first 2 games, Gabe? Non-existent in the series so far against Florida.
0 for 7 on the power play. Power play that's converts at 37% of the time normally.
Look at the stats. 5 out of the top 6 televised rated games on the WNBA this year all involve Caitlin Clark. The only one that doesn't was a second half of a doubleheader in which Caitlin Clark played the first game.
Only on SportsGrid.
8 playoff games at home for Boston in Beantown. They are 6-2 straight up.
The wild card, I would say, in this game is not necessarily, well, what are we going to get out of Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, Brown, and certainly Tatum. It is Kristaps Porzingis to me, because we're not getting back a player that's like, hey, rotational guy. Like, remember when Derek Lively went down with an injury? He was playing well, but a young player, like a piece.
The early line. Only on SportsGrid.
Garrett Cole's getting ready to come back too. I guess this. Look, they've played great without him, but you're not going to say to Garrett Cole, "Look, don't come back." I mean, it's a ridiculous conversation to have.
They're not going to take any unnecessary chances. And look, they're at the point where they have a lead. They certainly are going to make the playoffs, I would say, barring some sort of complete collapse. And that's all it takes.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
If you're in the room, what are you doing with the Judge MVP number? Books are now 2-1, standalone favorite. What are you doing with the Judge number?
What do I do with the MVP? I let them bet Judge at what? Even money? Come on in. I mean, you have to acknowledge now that he's the guy.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
I was just thinking, all right, the desperate team. So the Edmonton Oilers, the Oilers opened up at minus 125. It's up to minus 135 right now. They've moved to 10 cents already. So people are jumping in early on the Oilers. I just want to see, because I do like both the home teams. I don't know if they're actually going to win, but I don't really have a choice at this point. Just for the record, a parlay, the Edmonton Oilers to win Game 3 and the Mavericks to win Game 3 is plus 213 right now. Mo, you said you think both home teams. You said, yeah, you think the Mavericks are going to win the next one, but then lose the one after that. What do you think about the Oilers Game 3 in Edmonton? More of a toss-up.
Yeah, you know what? I think Bob has just been playing great. I think the Panthers' lines have been rolling, Gabe. They've been going stronger and stronger. It feels like they just get this superpower in the third period and just get better and just fortify what they have to do out there. I'm just curious to see, again, as I said to you before in the last segment, can the Oilers' power play be much more efficient? Can they play a little bit more edgier within clean context here? Because quite frankly, you just see the Panthers body up the Oilers in all facets of this hockey series right now. I think, like I said, I think Dallas wins Game 3, but give me Ford to win Game 3 and probably sweep the Oilers by the time we speak again next week.
The Euros are set to begin, and England are favored at plus 350. France are plus 400. It's in Germany. Germany are the home side at plus 550. Portugal are 7-1. Spain are plus 750. The defending champions, no one's really talking about Italy, 14-1. Then Belgium 16, Netherlands 16, Croatia 40. Who do you like to win the Euro Cup, Mo?
France, Portugal, Netherlands. Those are the three right now. England, I think, are suspect in the back line. They're going to this tournament, Gabe, with a lot of firepower, the English, but they cannot defend well. And they had some issues against Iceland in their final warm-up game on Friday. But watch out for the Dutch. It's a tough group that they're in, but they have been playing great under Ronald Koeman of late. I think for the French, I know people are aghast that they tied Canada, but remember, the French are built like this, Gabe. Slow, but they build up towards the important moments of a tournament, and that's what I think will happen. And for Portugal, they look like the most balanced team right now. They're like the Florida Panthers of this European Cup tournament. So I think Portugal, the Dutch, and the French are the three teams to watch out for.
Yeah, France are plus 400. The team that I have my eye on are Spain at plus 750, although I see an odds boost for plus 850. Look forward to this tournament starting. CFL started, and it was an entertaining week of football, unpredictable as always in the CFL. Yeah. But moving forward, Mo, so the Ottawa Red Blacks were the one team that didn't play. The Bombers lost to the Alouettes at home. Now they go on the road. They're 7-point favorites in Ottawa. The Montreal Alouettes play in Edmonton. Minus 5.5-point favorites. The Calgary Stampeders, who a lot of people thought were going to be terrible this year, played well. I don't know if that was a byproduct of Hamilton being really bad, but Calgary did look good. We'll give them credit. They're getting 8.5 points against BC, which I think is a little high, the point spread. Yeah. And the Hamilton Tiger Cats and the Rough Riders. Rough Riders beat the Elks on the road, and Hamilton lost to Calgary. Now they're 1-point home favorites. Who do you like this week in the CFL?
Montreal. I think Edmonton has some holes to look at. Give me BC, a home opener. I know 50's going to be there. You'll be there to watch that game.
50 Cent in the house.
50 Cent will be in the house. Here's the thing, Gabe. This Red-Black Bomber game is a trap game in my books. Remember last year, Winnipeg went to Ottawa and lost that game in a fluky fashion here. Winnipeg's banged up. No Kane Lawler. Big Hill's back in the lineup here, and they've had some issues. And for the BC Lions game, I know I'm picking them to win, but I worry about their O-line. They did not play well against Toronto on Sunday Night Football, and Vernon Adams did not have a clean pocket to work with. That game might be a little bit closer than expected, but I think BC does pull away. And look, for the Ticats right now against the Riders, look, I think Hamilton has a lot more question marks right now, a lot more pressure on that organization than SAS does. Give me the Riders to pull off the win over the Ticats as well, Gabe.
Yeah, we were talking about college football countdown is on. Georgia Tech and Florida State are playing on Saturday, August the 24th, and so are SMU and Nevada. And former quarterback SMU Mustang Bo Levi Mitchell on the Hamilton Tiger Cats right now. And Mo, I know it's early in the season, but there's been a regression for the past couple of years, and he keeps on getting hurt. As you stated, there's a lot of question marks moving forward with this football team, but don't want to overreact, bro. The CFL, they play 2 preseason games. Starters barely play, so we can't overreact. And plus, the season in the CFL is like a million weeks long, right? So, right, it's a lot of football
games.
left.
Yeah.
The championships is November, all right? 6 of the 9 teams make the playoffs, so there's no panic buttons being hit. You're the best, Mo. Always a pleasure, my man.
Yes, sir, my man. Have a great week, pal.
There's our boy Mo Khan, 19 on Twitter. I am Gabriel Morency at SportsRage on Twitter. Other than that, you're on your own. Later.